Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It is Wednesday, January 15th. It looks frigid outside, as it usually does in Ottawa in January. But anyway, it's the morning. I just finished getting ready. I'm going to be heading to U Ottawa very soon. I'm working with a group and we are doing a project for our history class that is due on Monday. And then after that, I'm going to be starting some of my personal learning experience. So I have officially decided that bike maintenance, tuning my bike, is what I'm going to focus on. And I'm stoked. I'm actually super excited about it. So my bike currently isn't here in the apartment that I live in. It's over at my boyfriend's parents' place. So I'm gonna head there. They also have some other bikes, so it'll be good because I can take a look at different parts and on different bikes, and that's what I'm doing today. So I made a list, a schedule of what I'm doing, what each week consists of, and this week I'm going to be looking at the different components, feeling really comfortable with the names, the technical names of everything, and then that way as I move forward into my maintenance journey, I can feel really confident and know what I'm talking about. So that's the scoop for today. Basically, I'm gonna be taking you along on a little vlog journey of my day. So stay tuned and I will see you in the next clip. Hello, I'm back. So I went to school, worked with my group. We actually accomplished a lot, feeling super good for Monday, so that's great. Anyway, what I'm doing now in regards to my personal learning experience is I am finalizing a very special document called Bike Anatomy. And I'm going to be using that later to really help solidify my knowledge and understanding of the different components of the bicycle. And so I'll be taking that over later today when I go look at the bike. And on that document, I have the different parts, what they do, there's diagrams, there's labels, the whole 9 yards. So that's gonna be wonderful later today and super helpful, I'm sure. Hello, welcome back. I am now in the garage with the bike and we are going to get started on a very basic anatomy lesson of this bicycle. Now for my own learning, I feel like to understand the nitty-gritty, what each part is, I think is going to be imperative to my learning of doing more mechanical things. So this is step number 1. I think this is going to be very important. So here we go. Okay, so here we have it. Here is the bike. Now it is currently sitting on a trainer, which is why it looks a little weird because it's missing its back wheel, but there's its back wheel, happily living over there. Now, in terms of the different components, different parts of the bike, the first thing I want to talk about is the frame. Now the frame is this whole component here that's pretty much the skeleton of the bike. It holds everything together. And that has a few different parts. So there's your top tube here, you have your down tube here, you have your seat tube here, your seat stay, and your chain stay. And then you also have your bottom bracket, which is essentially this middle part here. And there's a hole inside. That's your bottom bracket. So that's the frame. Those are the formal names for those different pieces, which I think is important to know moving forward. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is brakes. And from my learning, I've learned there's 4 different kinds of brakes. There's caliper brakes, cantilever brakes, V-brakes, and disc brakes. Now, the most common kind of brake and what's on this particular bike is the caliper brakes. So essentially, it's this little component that clamps on the metal part of the rim of the bike, and that's what stops it. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of how that looks. I will show you. So this is the brake component here, and on your handlebar, when you're riding your bike, you will simply pull down on this part here to engage the brake. And when you do so, you see that clamping action around the silver, we're gonna be upside down, around the silver rim part of the bike there. Now here's a cool example as well, since like I said, the bike doesn't have a back wheel right now. When I pull on the back brake, you can really see that clamping action happen with those caliper brakes. Now we also have a mountain bike that has disc brakes on it, which I will show you later in terms of how that works and how that looks. I want to talk about the part that I find the most confusing, and the part that I'm sure a lot of people that are learning the mechanics of a bike also find confusing, which is essentially how the chain moves and how all of this functions. So from my understanding, what does that is the derailleur. So there's two. There's a front derailleur and there's a back derailleur. And what these do is they move the chain from one gear to the next. Now on the back here, you have a cassette, which has 11 different gears. And each of those is called a cog. And so your chain moves from one cog to the next, which essentially makes it easier or harder to pedal. And then on the front, your front derailleur does the exact same thing. So it moves your chain from one gear to the next. And on the front, there is only two. So there's two on the front, there's 11 on the back. Quick math, 2 times 11 is 22. So there's 22 different gears that this bike has. Now, the biggest challenge for me, and the part that I really want to learn, and the reason why I'm doing this whole personal learning experience to begin with, is I want to feel comfortable with playing and tuning with these derailleurs, making sure that my chain isn't going to fall off either way. And it takes some practice, but that is what I'm determined to feel really comfortable with by the end of this journey. So the last few parts that I want to talk about, I think are a little bit more easily explainable. So we have your handlebars, we have your brakes, which are on the front here. They go in and out. And you have your gear shifters. So your shifters, they also go in and out. And there's one on the other side as well that change what I was talking about with your chain. Those shifters do that. Then you have, of course, your wheels, your front and your back wheel. You have your seat and your seat post. You have your pedals and your crank. And the pedals can be different depending on what kind of shoes you wear when you're cycling. So these ones are particularly for shoes that have clips. Otherwise, I think that's kind of the basic anatomy of a bicycle here. So this is what we're working with. This is what I'm going to be tinkering with over the next few weeks. Okay, and as mentioned, here is a mountain bike. So obviously just from first looks, it looks very different than a road bike. It's bigger, it's got bigger wheels, it looks a little bit more rough and tough. I don't mountain bike, but anyway. The main difference that I wanted to talk about though quickly was this has disc brakes, which is very different than the brakes that I showed you on the road bike. So instead of them being up at the top here and clamping on the rim, they're actually located down here inside the middle of the wheel. And so I'm still kind of working out the mechanics of how that works. So stay tuned for more information on that. But nonetheless, it's obviously very different than what I was showing you on the road bike that I ride. So that is just a little tidbit of information. Okay, thank you for watching me ramble on about my bike anatomy, but that is kind of the basics that I wanted to touch on today. So in my next video, we'll be starting to do some more technical stuff, but like I said, for my own learning, I feel like understanding the foundations and knowing what I'm talking about and what the parts are before I start pulling anything apart and trying to figure it out, I feel like that is very important to me. Okay, chat soon. Bye-bye.